Rape is recognized as a criminal offense in the Sexual Offenses and Domestic Violence Act. It is defined as one having sexual intercourse with a person who he or she is not married to without that person's consent. In essence, no means no. The act of rape may be carried out by physical force, coercion, abuse of authority, or against a person who is incapable of giving valid consent. As we speak, this remains a heavily debated topic in the Bahamas today. But tonight, we continue our discussion on gender-based violence. Our topic, rape, the process of investigation and scars left behind. Bijan Ferguson is our guest. He's a former police officer turned attorney. I'm your host, Jerome Sawyer. We'll see you on the other side of this break. So the project really pays itself back.
Correct.
They set up
At the conference, the school.
As a journalist, I always have to focus on the facts, and sometimes that means going to investigate for myself. On the Record, Thursdays at 8 p.m. right here on RTV.
Welcome back. You're watching On the Record. Let's take a look now on what's made news since we last spoke. News for North Abaco MP Kirk Cornish. He was in police custody last Thursday and released shortly after. The R News team finding out the information while on the ground in Grand Bahama on Friday when they visited the Central Police Station there, only to learn that the MP was no longer there. In a way, bringing this story to a bit of a crescendo. I think there was a lot of, there were many calls, I should say, for him to be taken into custody and questioned, but be very interesting to see what happens next. Of course, if it is an active investigation, we'll see how it pans out. If he moves on or if the story moves on, then we move on. National Security Minister Wayne Munro sharing government's hope of introducing a parole act for consultation. Munro says the bill will seek to clean up and change the current system in which prisoners serve their time. The goal, he says, is for everyone to serve their sentence one way or the other. Anytime you talk about anything that can affect the way our prison runs, the way our inmates are treated, I think that's a good thing. A lot of the laws and policies and regulations related to our penal system are very much outdated and need to be addressed. So, I'm happy to see that is at least the direction that we're moving in. Well, a wet situation at the Lynden Pinling International Airport on Sunday passed. Passengers at the international terminal were forced to walk through inches of water, some with luggage in hand. A water leak in a room also damaging cardboard boxes and other materials on the ground, according to a statement from the Nassau Airport Development Company. A failed fire suspension line led to the flooding in the arrivals corridor near the immigration hall. Well, I have to say this, up until now, NAD has done an amazing job with the airport. This was a very unfortunate situation. That airport has come such a long way. We all remember the old airport and the many, many problems. And so these issues occur. Hopefully, this is the last that we'll see, but continue to do the great job that you're doing there, NAD. That's a beautiful airport. I enjoy going through it anytime I get a chance. This is just an unfortunate situation. All right. Central Bank reporting that the Bahamian economy continued to expand at a healthy pace in the first quarter of 2023. Climbing tourism numbers and foreign direct investments in real estate and tourism development, some key factors adding to the economic growth for the first quarter of the year. Central Bank Governor John Rolle says tourism's recovery can be attributed to pent-up demand for travel. Good news for the economy, good news for tourism, and that's the thing. You know, since we've come through COVID, people are still traveling. They're traveling more than ever. I think somebody mentioned to me some weeks ago that, you know, people have cut back on other things but continue to spend on travel. So that's good news for the economy. Always happy to get those reports from the Central Bank and the Central Bank Governor. So great news there. On to a much sadder note, though. Bahamas Consul General to Toronto, Al Dillette, was found dead in his official residence in Canada on Tuesday morning. Foreign Affairs Minister Fred Mitchell confirming in a statement it appeared Dillette died of natural causes. Prime Minister Philip Davis also releasing a statement calling Dillette one of the finest journalists this country produced. You know, on a personal note, Al Dillette really, for me, was, I think, one of the first individuals who operated sort of like a press secretary during the first Christie administration. He was a great journalist, known and loved by many of us in the business, great at what he did. Just recently took that post, and so that's a great loss to country and to the industry itself. May he rest in peace. Certainly our concerns, thoughts and prayers are with his family. And those were just some of the topics out there in the news since we last spoke. We're going to take a break here. And when we return, our discussion on rape, the process of investigation and scars left behind, begins with our guest, attorney Bijan Ferguson. Stay close. So the project really pays itself back.
Correct.
They set up
At the conference,
the school.
As a journalist, I always have to focus on the facts, and sometimes that means going to investigate for myself. On the Record, Thursdays at 8 p.m. right here on RTV.
You're watching On the Record. Welcome back. The law says rape is a criminal offense. Attempting to rape a person is also a criminal offense. There is a process, however, before one can be called a rapist or a rape victim. Tonight, we discuss that process with attorney Bijan Ferguson, who was once an officer of the law and now an attorney. Welcome, sir. Welcome again to On the Record. You've become a regular with us here.
Thank you, Jerome.
In your previous experience as an officer of the law and an attorney, tell us, what is the process after a person is accused or arrested for rape?
And in most instances, obviously the police is responsible for the investigation. And so in most instances, whatever information has been collected, you would get the assistance of your lawyers, who in that situation would be the Office of the Department of Public Prosecutions. They would give a review, give advice, and give further directions, whether or not to charge or to move forward or do additional work. So that's normally the process after an arrest takes place. You get directions and assistance from the attorneys.
Generally, how long is that person questioned before they are charged or have to be released?
Well, the law guides that as well. So you could be in custody for 48 hours. And then obviously if the police needs additional time, they can make an application to the court for 3 additional days. So you could be in custody up to 5 days. And then, some decision or determination is made. You could be released pending further investigations. And like I say, at that point, the police may have to do additional inquiries, seek advice from the Office of Director of Public Prosecutions.
So we recently had a situation where a member of Parliament was taken in for custody. Members of the public thought that it was a short time in which he was in custody. He was taken in one evening, and by the following morning, we learned that he had been released. Is that generally what happens?
Every matter is unique. Every investigation is unique. And I would say the premise of detaining a person overnight and keeping them in custody is more or less when you may have a difficulty locating the person again, or them interfering with your investigation, trying to destroy evidence. And so you would keep them in custody. And so being released pending is not necessarily abnormal, unusual. It happens.
Can you be called back for questioning?
Absolutely.
At any time.
At any time.
And now, what's the main thing that a police officer might be looking out for in his or her questioning of an individual?
I would say, obviously, you have to your investigation may be guided by the initial statement of the complainant. You know, it may send you in a particular direction, and you follow through, and try to corroborate. But rape is a very difficult offense, in all honesty.
Why is that? Why is it so difficult to prove?
I would say the lack of consent in the situations is a difficult issue for a jury, very difficult. And people are looking for corroboration, some independent piece of evidence to support the statement. That's not always there. And so it's a difficult issue for juries, because the lack of consent is an issue for the jury. That has to be determined by the jury.
What kinds of things, though, stand out in evidence, and what kind of evidence has to be presented that could potentially get a guilty verdict from
Like I say, every case is unique. And so you may have a case where you're just relying on the statement alone of the complainant. There's nothing else other than the statement. In other instances, you may have scientific evidence, you may have, fingerprints and that sort of thing, but sometimes you just have a statement.
And, of course, just relying on your experience, what are the things that juries normally what type of evidence will normally work for a conviction? What types of things will get a jury to move towards a guilty verdict? What type of evidence, or what types of things in your experience will people in the jury go, okay, well, I can understand that, I can believe that?
It's very difficult to say, wow. Jerome. It's very difficult. Like I say, in situations of rape being alleged with a person known to the complainant, it's even a more difficult scenario versus a stranger. So if you have a stranger, a complainant making a complaint against a stranger, a stranger, someone unknown to the person, that kind of situation, I would say the juries are more able to believe and appreciate and comprehend. Whereas if it's a situation where a complaint being levied against someone who is known to the complainant or a virtual complainant, that creates some challenges for.
So when when the individuals know each other, it becomes a lot more difficult.
A lot more difficult versus a stranger. Because
it is a question of consent?
Consent is always the issue. Consent is the lack of consent is the main issue in a sexual offenses matter, a rape matter.
Once you get to the point of a conviction, what kinds of sentencing could the individual face?
Well, rape on the books, you could be sentenced up to life imprisonment, right? Really? But obviously, the judicial officer, the judge, he has to artistically put together a sentence that is appropriate or suitable for the crime that is before him, that incident that is before him. And so you could get sentences ranging from 4, 7 years, 9, 7 to 10 years on a first offense for rape.
Wow. But you can get on the extreme end.
You can get up.
And what really determines the I guess the gravity of the sentencing?
Like, it'll have to be the factual matrix of the case, you know. So it has to be that unique situation where, you know, it invites the court to send a very, very strong message, you know, and that would be an issue.
One of the arguments, or one of the things that I think probably is most tenuous with rape cases is this notion, or sometimes there are instances when the man is falsely accused. In your opinion, are there many cases where men are sent to prison on rape charges and found to have been innocent?
There have been situations where complaints have been levied and have been, through the trial process, it has been determined, it hasn't been proven. Or there are situations where the person was convicted and at the Court of Appeal it's been overturned, you know, because of some issue as a trial miscarriage. And so they are the issues that I know based on my experience. But to say someone walked into a station at the first instance and made a complaint, I wouldn't say it hasn't happened, but personally I don't know of any. You know, I'm pretty sure, you know, there are situations where people go into the station and give, but that is an offense within itself.
And then of course, so then that begs the question: what happens to the person who makes the false complaint?
And that is the point I make. One would expect some charge to flow, you know, and I don't have any recollection or of anything of that sort ever happening.
So
Whereas,
now, and then I guess that is the argument that a lot of people have. You know, you will take the accused through this process, but if that person is falsely accused, then there are no repercussions for the person who does it.
And I don't want to say no repercussions because, like I say, the law prohibits it. There is a law against it.
Right.
And so I simply don't know of any situations where someone has been taken before the court for making a false complaint about rape. You know, and I would expect if the situations, you know, had happened, you would, because you want to deter that kind of activity.
Sure. Have you ever experienced a case where someone recants their story once they get to court?
It happens. It happens. Sometimes, you know, people don't want to follow through, don't want to go through. It happens.
And generally, I don't want to go through, do you think it's a change of heart, or I just don't want to be dragged into this, I don't want it to be a public?
I think it has a lot to do with our society, how people are viewed and looked at. You know, some people just don't want to go through that ordeal.
Interesting. How, you know, when you look at, for instance, the jury pool, in your experience, is it tougher to get a conviction on rape?
I think rape is a difficult offense. It's a very difficult offense to deal with. In recent times, I've been just looking at the makeup of juries. I would say, from my experience, my assessment, juries are predominantly made up of females. And for whatever reason,
The man ain't coming.
yeah, you know, but I've seen more female participation in the jury, our jury system.
As a defense attorney, when you see that, does it make your work a little bit more difficult?
I mean, I think it does. For whatever reason, I don't know why, but females have a difficulty connecting with other females. That's, you know, my experience.
Really?
Yeah.
I would think they would be a little bit more sympathetic to the
think
female.
so too, but that has not been my experience.
That's interesting. Is it, you know, I know we're here to talk about rape, but is it the same for your other cases as well, or is it?
I think females are more sympathetic to young complainants, younger complainants. So those who unlawful sexual intercourse, those under 16, under 14, they're more sympathetic, empathetic towards those sorts of situations versus an adult complaint, making a complaint of rape.
Mm-hmm.
That has been an experience of mine.
Interesting. And so again, you're looking at jury pool and who's coming and
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that's interesting. I never realized that. Okay, well, good. At this point, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we've got more on the record. Our discussion continues right after this. So the project really pays itself back. They
Correct.
set up
At the conference,
the school.
As a journalist, I always have to focus on the facts, and sometimes that means going to investigate for myself. On the Record, Thursdays at 8 p.m. right here on RTV.
Welcome back. Before we get back to our discussion, let's hear from the public as we turn things over now to our Joshua Williams with our man on the street in the Tweenies.
The issue of rape and gender-based violence has been a hot-button topic for residents around the country for the past few weeks, and with a number of persons being accused of alleged rape, many believe the system has failed in solving these issues. This resident tells us how.
Number one, I'm not knocking the police. Please don't think I am. But I think there's a lot of things that is pushed under the rug that shouldn't be. And also, too, because of who you are, you get the higher rank. So you're allowed to do things and just get a slap on the hand and that's it.
While on the issue of higher-ranked individuals, for weeks, a sitting member of parliament has been accused of alleged sexual abuse. Just Friday, April 28th, Member of Parliament for North Abaco, Kirk Conrish, turned himself into police in Grand Bahama for questioning in relation to rape allegations. While some residents were frustrated with the time frame it took to bring the alleged MP in for questioning, this resident says the process had to be followed.
Police has to investigate. So when the investigation is finished, then they will do the action. So they did the action. The police did the action. They did bring him to questioning. So, well, it took a little long to me. It took a little long, but anyhow, but they brought him in.
For Michelle Davis, she says the time spent in jail needs to increase.
The system itself, the justice system, need to change, because if you find enough evidence that somebody actually raped a person, I think they should really pay the penalty for that. And I ain't talking about no 3-4 years, 20 years to teach them a lesson. Hey, you have brothers you have sisters and you have mommy to be doing those things to persons.
And as for those who are afraid to speak up,
Finally, make that appeal to the victim at home who's afraid to reach out, who's afraid to speak out because they're afraid of what may happen to them.
Okay. Anyone out there that has an issue and something has happened, I appeal to you to reach out to the authorities and seek help. Don't keep that all to yourself, because later on it will haunt you, you know.
And I'm Joshua Williams, reporting for On the Record.
My name is Angelique Williamson, and I'm on the record.
My name is Wilkinson Francis, and I'm on the record.
My name is Michelle Davis, and I'm on the record.
Great job there, Joshua. We're back with our discussion now. Rape, the process of investigation and scars left behind. Our guest, Attorney Bijan Ferguson. Let's turn our attention now to the accuser. Is there a special type of questioning for the alleged rape victims when they make the complaint?
I mean, you're asked to basically recall the events. You
Right.
know, that's essentially the substance of the statement, the complaint. Direct recollection of what took place. You want to get all the details surrounding that.
And then the accused is brought in for questioning. And what does that line of questioning look like from your experience?
Like I say, it's primarily based around things the complainant may have said, you know, in the initial complaint. And then also any additional inquiries that the police would have done as a result of that complaint. You know, so it's all, every case is unique.
Case by case.
It's,
Case by
absolutely,
case.
it's case by case.
So, you know, I'm a big watcher of Law and Order and all these TV police and courtroom dramas, and you watch where they're asking the accused over and over and over and hours and hours and hours. You know, does that happen? And is that designed to get you to crack or to get them to change the statement? What?
And so in the process, once again, you know, the complainant has rights and the accused has rights. And that's the job also of the attorney, protecting those rights in the process. Because obviously there's a desire of the police to solve the case. And so, you know, they could do things that may violate or breach the accused person's rights by, you know, the kind of questioning, the oppressive questioning or oppressive behavior, conduct, and those things may amount to a breach. And so anything that would have been said in those circumstances, the court could disallow or exclude from evidence.
As the attorney, do you have a right to be there during all the questioning?
Generally, that is the position, to give advice. The practice is allowing attorneys to actually sit in on the interview process. So, yeah.
Does that happen?
It happens.
It happens.
It happens.
Right. Having been a police officer and now an attorney, I take it that works in your favor.
I wouldn't say it works in my favor. At the end of the day, it's all about fairness, fundamentally, and the protection of rights. You know, there are rights on both sides. That's the whole scale, balancing of these rights.
And I think we miss that sometimes because once you are accused,
you're automatically, you know, rightly or wrongly, you're automatically in the public. There is a stigma attached. Once the police comes out and says, "This is the person we're sending to court," you're automatically deemed guilty. You know, but like I say, in the process, the accused person has rights. The virtual complainant also has rights, and the lawyer's job is to protect his client's rights.
One of the things that we do differently in this jurisdiction, particularly once that matter gets to the court, we as journalists and as the media, we are bound to report only what comes out of court and that's relative to the case. In other jurisdictions, there's lots of commentary and all kinds of things. The case is tried in the court of public opinion. Does that work to our advantage, you know, from the accused side, once that matter is now before the court and there's so little commentary? Does that help in protecting the rights?
In our society, there is a lot of pressure, obviously, on the media to deliver information for the public, and I think sometimes, you know, in the haste, things are done and said that, you know, may prejudice.
Even before the case is tried.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah. You know, and so, you know, I guess that comes with the territory. Lawyers are there to try to deal with those sorts of issues.
Right.
Because, you know, ultimately, if it's indictable matter, it's going to be dealt with by a jury. You know, and so you could
and
have
the jury
issues.
comes from the community.
Absolutely.
And I think sometimes people get, as I always get the question is, why don't you all do more? Why don't you say more? Why don't you? And it's like, well, you know, matters before the court.
Exactly.
Interesting. Now let's talk a little bit about something that's used, or those things that are used in trying to get a rape conviction, a rape kit. How does that work here? Do we have rape kits? Are they used effectively here?
I can't speak to it now, but I know it's basically a standard procedure with a rape complaint. You know, the complainant is issued a rape kit by the police. It's taken to the hospital, given to the doctor, and the doctor does all its necessary specimens, looking for, you know, any scientific matter that may aid in the police's investigation. It's pretty standard.
Right. Which then leads to some form of DNA testing.
Absolutely. Some additional analysis, some additional investigation, yeah.
And how thorough is our data bank when it comes to DNA? How good is the process?
As far as I know, we don't have one. As far as I know, once again, all of those sorts of analysis are done out of country. And so, you know, I don't know where it's all stored, and these are issues that arise in the trial. You know, you need to know who is it being compared against and who is storing all of this.
I think you call it chain of custody, eh?
No, the chain of custody is a part of it, but
Right.
I'm saying, you know, where is this being stored? Because the analysis is not being done in country, you know. So, there are issues surrounding that. There's still a lot of gray in that area.
Cases are won and lost on DNA?
There are some cases that are in our system, yes, lost on DNA.
The solution is to have our own
I
DNA
would say,
facilities.
yeah. If I recall, recently in the summit regionally, I think that was a discussion that was led where they were considering all of the CARICOM countries, I guess, coming together and trying to establish a regional DNA lab. So, you know, I don't know.
That could be equally as expensive because for us, I think getting to the U.S. is easier, right?
It costs.
Yeah.
You know, I'm advised it's very costly. You know, each analysis, each kit has to be analyzed, and so, you know, it's a cost to do that.
Sure. Again, to the actual investigation process, are victims questioned by female officers, as far as you know? Is it a combination, or is it just men, or just depends on who's on duty at the time?
Yeah, well, I think, you know, previously when I was there, it was made up of males and females. And so I'm pretty sure it'll be sensitive to, you know, the desire of the complainant. If you're comfortable speaking to a male or a female, you know, I think those issues are recognized and dealt with.
Are we, as our police force, equipped, though, to handle these types of things properly? Rape is a very difficult crime sometimes because of the complexities, as we've even talked about. But are we equipped to handle these types of cases? And this is, I'm talking about not just the victim, but also the accused. Are we prepared? Are we adequately prepared to handle these cases?
The capability is there. The training takes place from, you know, when I was there. The training, professional training is conducted, and like I say, for the most part, a lot of the investigations is a standard approach to it, and so meeting the standard, capable and adequately, it all depends on the officers involved being professional in the execution of their duties, you know.
When you have a situation like the one we had previously with a sitting MP that's involved, and the public commentary, and it's coming from all over, and the accusations that are flying, does that make it that much more difficult to properly deal with a case like that?
I don't think so. I don't think so at all. It's a standard approach. The law is blind, and everyone is treated equally under the law. And so I would say it's no difficulty.
So while we out here making all this noise, the process is going on, seemingly going as it should.
I can't speak to the process.
Right.
I would say I've witnessed rape matters been dealt with in very short time frames. You know, so I don't know any issues that arises that make this any other kind of matter.
Any different?
Any different? Yeah.
I know we've got to get you out of here in just a minute, but you know, as in law, there's always precedents. You're always looking to see what are the lessons learned from each case and how you doing that. How you deal with that going forward. But just in looking at this as a legal practitioner and everything that has come out of this, I guess, what are the lessons here? Are there any lessons that we could take away from this entire, and I call it a fiasco because it really has been a fiasco in many ways. Is there anything even that you see that could have been done differently or better?
I mean, I think as a citizen, firstly, I'm just leaving the whole lawyer thing alone. You expect professionalism from your agencies that are obligated to carry out this kind of work. You expect equality in treatment. No one should be treated any differently. And I'm saying, I don't expect anybody's rights to be mashed up in the process. There's a respect for rights in the process. But the law is blind. No one is above the law. I'm a huge proponent of the rule of law. And so if we lose that from these agencies, they lose their legitimacy to carry out their functions and lose public trust and confidence, and we'll have serious issues in this town. And so we have to be hell-bent, resolute to ensure that those agencies do what they're supposed to do in each situation.
Interesting, because I think a lot of people expect things to go differently when certain people are involved.
The law, I don't prescribe to that. I don't subscribe to that at all. Equality under the law. It should be no different from any other citizen. And
I think that's what we always have to remember in a case like this, I think. Or in any case, you have to allow the law to take its course. And we require different things, I think, as individuals, but it's important, like you said, to remember the law is blind.
It's blind.
Good way. That's a good way to end. Fionn Ferguson, we are out of time. Always happy to have you on, and always happy that you can bring such sense to these discussions. And I don't mean that in a bad way. Sometimes, we need the experts to come in and talk and to help us to understand and navigate. So thank you so much for joining us, and we hope to see you back again here soon. Let's take our final break now and check out what's trending on social media when we return. So the project really pays itself back.
Correct.
They set up
At the conference,
the school.
As a journalist, I always have to focus on the facts, and sometimes that means going to investigate for myself. On the Record, Thursdays at 8 p.m. right here on RTV.
You're watching On the Record. Welcome back. This is our final segment. Social media platforms are interactive technologies that facilitate the creation and sharing of information, ideas, interests, and other forms of expression. Let's see what's trending out there. Well, first up, journalist Jasper Ward tweeted that the White House announced that the COVID-19 vaccine requirement for international air travel to the U.S. will end on May 11th. Did you hear the collective sigh of relief from all the unvaccinated folks out there? They can now go to the U.S. without worrying about being turned away for not being vaccinated. Also a clear sign that we have really reached another milestone in life post-COVID-19. All right. Salil retweets a Nassau Guardian story where a primary school student was knocked down on Johnson Road by a driver who was making a getaway following a shooting that left a 30-year-old man in hospital. Every once in a while, I say that there are those stories that cause us to pause, to tell us the level of crime that we have reached. To me, this is another one of those stories which tells me that we have hit another level. When you're going to knock down a school child, getting away from a shooting, I mean, you know, we talk about the Wild Wild West. Well, we are in Wild Wild Nassau. All right, Nassau Christian School posts that Kiara Roll, a crusader. This is just the beginning. Amen and congratulations. The Girls in ICT Day event held at the Atlantis Paradise Island Resort ended with a young Bahamian woman receiving a full ride in scholarships to Virginia State University to pursue degrees in STEM fields. Kiara Roll is a 17-year-old student at Nassau Christian School. She says the scholarship changes everything for her. So congratulations. Well done. I know it's going to be a life-changing experience. Also, congratulations to all of those who were recognized for Girls at ICT, including some of our very own team members here at RTV and R News. All right. Lala Lockhart poking some fun at the freaky flooding at the Lynden Pinling Airport this Sunday. She says, we was having a Aquaventure special today. Y'all miss it. Of course, an unfortunate situation, which we talked about there at the airport, but always good to poke a little fun whenever you can. Aquaventure adventure, really, but good stuff. Always something to make us smile. Finally, a pop-based tweeting Rihanna reveals full. Yes, it's the Riri dress in a fancy dress revealing the full baby bump. So Rihanna there showing us the full baby bump. You know, we got a glimpse when she performed at the Super Bowl, but certainly here she is at the baby bump looking fabulous as ever. Safe delivery, Rihanna, and thank you for always jazzing it up for us. All right, that's a wrap for us tonight. Rape, the process of investigation and scars left behind was our topic. Our guest, attorney Bijan Ferguson, thanks so much for appearing. Join us next week for another topic that directly affects the lives of Bahamians. Until then, I'm Jerome Sawyer. We'll see you again soon.